To Labour now, I can speak to the Shadow Paymaster General, Jonathan Ashworth. Good morning, Mr. Ashworth.
Good morning.
Can I just start with the same question I put to Mark Harper? Should the Speaker have called Diane Abbott to speak in PMQs this week?
Well, obviously, procedures in the House of Commons are a matter for the Speaker. I think people were surprised she wasn't called. It's obviously been an absolutely horrendous week for Diane. I cannot imagine what she must have been going through and continues to go through. Imagine just waking up or reading the papers to find out that a prominent Conservative donor has not only used racist, reprehensible language about her, that he's called for her to be shot. I mean, this is in the context, obviously, in recent years when two of our parliamentary colleagues have been murdered. I thought it was staggering that Rishi Sunak took, 24 hours to acknowledge the racism of these remarks. And the fact that this donor's 10 million or even 15 million potentially is bankrolling the Tory party, I think just shows you the depths to which the Tory party has plummeted to. They should hand that money back. They shouldn't be using this money to fund their election campaign, to fund their leaflets and so on. It's pretty reprehensible.
I think you've made the point, and that's been discussed. I'd like to talk about the things that are in your control rather than in the Conservative Party's control. Here's a list of MPs who want the whip restored to Diane Abbott: Angela Rayner, Harriet Harman, Ellie Reeves, John McDonnell, Afsana Begum, Rosina Allen Khan, Belle Ribeiro, Dawn Butler, Ian Lavery, not to mention former MP Ed Balls. Do you agree with them?
Well, there is a process. The process is
we know what the process is, but I'm asking you, would you like to see the whip restored? Angela Rayner didn't say there's a process. She said, I want the whip restored.
Well, she did actually. She did actually point out that there is a process and she's not responsible.
And then she said, I'd like to see the whip restored at the end of that process. Do you agree with her?
But it is important. It is important that there is a process in place. One of the criticisms of Labour's complaints processes in recent years is that they were too easily or could be manipulated by political interests. So it's right now that politicians like myself have no involvement in that process. Diane is a colleague.
Yeah, but you can't both say I have no involvement and no influence, and then say I can't tell you what I think. Because either you've got influence, and therefore you shouldn't say anything.
I actually disagree with you, Trevor. No, I actually disagree with you, Trevor. If it's an independent process, it shouldn't be bent to political pressure by politicians, in my view. Now, I used to be, I'm not at the moment, I used to be a member of Labour's National Executive Committee, so I have a sort of, if you like, a rather nerdy knowledge of how these processes work. And I know these processes very quasi-legal, with solicitors' letters and so on, and that comments by politicians trying to influence the process can sometimes be used in that. So look, there should be an independent process. That is fair to Diane. That is fair to the investigation. I obviously want it to proceed and be concluded, but it is the independence of it is important.
All right. Well, let me just ask you one question about this very pure protest. John McDonnell, your colleague, former Shadow Chancellor, speaking of the Cabinet Minister Esther McVey, said in 2014, why aren't we lynching her? Literally, those were his words. He's never apologised. He's never been subject to party discipline. Should he be?
Well, I don't know if he has apologised or not. It was some time ago
tell you he hasn't,
when he made those remarks.
I looked it up, and he specifically said in 2018, and more recently, I will not apologise. Should he be subject to party discipline?
Well, I mean, it's a historic comment.
No, he said less than 2 years ago, I'm not apologising.
But the original, I mean, presumably the original. When was the original comment? I mean, look, it's not a comment I would agree with. I think it. Well, I mean, it's 10 years ago he said that. He shouldn't have said it, and I would hope he would apologise.
All right. Can we just also get one thing clear, talking about the nerdy process? If the Labour whip isn't restored before the next election's called, can Diane Abbott be the Labour candidate in Hackney and Stoke Newington? I assume not.
Well, you're asking me to engage in a hypothetical, but of course, I would hope that the independent process would be aware of the necessity of the timescales and would want to have resolved itself by then, resolved the matter by then.
Ah, so you would like a message to be sent to the independent process that they should get on with it?
I mean, I don't know why you're going, aha, as if this is some sort of Oxford
Well, you've just
Union
been telling me
debating
that you haven't got anything to
it's
say
quite
about
simply,
it.
you're asking me,
and now
well,
you just said, get on with it, mate.
Oh, Trevor, this is not the Oxford Union. It's an independent process. I'm trying to be careful not to put political pressure on an independent process because that's inappropriate. It's also inappropriate for all the other independent processes for other colleagues who are undergoing, have issues and it's looking into. It has to be allowed to pursue its investigations, to talk to the people involved in the appropriate way. I am not trying to be too clever by half. I'm trying to respect an independent process here. It's as simple as that. And because people involved, if there's been a complaint made against you, you want to ensure that you get a proper, fair hearing. And the people who may have made the complaint need to ensure there's a proper, fair hearing, which applies to all colleagues who go through this type of independent process. All right,
let's talk about proper politics. We know that your party is going to be saying this week that the Rwanda scheme won't work, that we need, if we want to stop the boat, we need to crack down on the criminal gangs. I don't think we need to go through that again. But so without repeating the phrase itself, can you explain how you plan to crack down on the criminal gangs? What will you do?
Well, first of all, this plan, this proposal from the government, which is really a gimmick, costing over £500 million, it'd actually be cheaper to put up the failed asylum seekers in the Paris Ritz for a number of years than this scheme. Obviously, the government are going to get their legislation through. They'll get flights taking off, but it's something like less than 1% of the total number of asylum seekers, yet costing £500 million. I think that works out as something. We're expecting it to be something like £2 million per person who get on this flight or these flights when they take off. I think it would be much better and more prudent to use that money, that £500 million, and put that money into a proper cross-border policing operation, so cooperating with our partners across Europe and Europol and other police forces, ensuring that we have more staff processing asylum claims, more staff on the returns regime, ensuring that people who are not supposed to be here are returned. So we think there is a better way to spend that money in order to put in place the policing and security services that we think are able to go after these gangs, smash these criminal smuggling gangs, and bring order to the border there.
Thank you. That's a very practical answer. Would one of the things that you'd have to do to achieve that be to have a closer relationship with the EU to make that work?
Well, we think we should be cooperating with Europol and police officers, other police services in Europe, of course, with particularly the French police services. And that is the way in which you deal with these problems, because these are issues around the border do need cooperation with other nations. Of course they do. But that is a better way, it's a more practical approach to this than spending £500 million on flights which will take less than 1% of asylum seekers. That is not a good use of taxpayers' money.
Can I just ask you one last question, which is close to our hearts here at Sky? You told my colleague Kay Burley, I think earlier this week, that the election would be May the 2nd, and you bet her a tenner.
I did.
To go to local charity. Here's what you said.
I think it's definitely coming in May. The Conservatives are planning for May.
I bet you 10 of your English pounds it doesn't.
I bet you it's coming in May. Right, let's do that. We can do it. I do a lot of running for Children of Alcoholics charity. Let's call NACOA. Let's give the money there.
Have you paid up yet?
Well, not yet, but I will give the money to the Children of Alcoholics charity. But look, right? It's either. I always thought it's either a general.
Bring a camera to the handover of the tenner.
She certainly can, but I always thought it would either be a general election, a Tory leadership election. And look what we've had over these last 10 days. We've had Rishi Sunak, unveiling a unfunded £46 billion bombshell, which threatens public services or threatens the state pension as we know it. We've heard that he's being bankrolled by this racist money in his election campaign. There's Tory MPs who are in the papers today saying Rishi Sunak can't continue. This is not in the national interest anymore. It is irresponsible We need
Okay.
stability in this country. He could stabilise this by naming the date of a general election. Otherwise, I fear we may have a Tory leadership election ahead of a general election.
Jonathan Ashworth, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.